Yes. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar about strategies for hybrid teaching with English learners. I'm Emily Sumner and I'll be your host today. Before we begin, I'd like to review just a few quick housekeeping items that will help make the webinar run a little smoother for you. We are going to cover a lot of information today. This is a fast-paced webinar, but we definitely welcome your questions. And you can send those questions to us throughout the presentation, and we're going to try to answer as many as possible during the Q&A period at the end. You'll see at the bottom of your screen that there's an icon for Q&A, and if you click on that icon, a window will pop up and you can type your question into that window. You'll be able to see the questions that you've asked as well as questions that other participants have asked. And again, we'll be holding a Q&A at the end of the webinar. We'll be getting to as many questions as possible. If we don't get to your question, we will follow up and make sure to try to get an answer for you. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, you can send me a note through the Q&A and I'll do my best to resolve the problem for you. One thing that you can do right now to try to make the webinar run smoothly and prevent audio and video lags is to close all the other programs on your computer. I know that's super hard to do, and also close all of your internet browser. So that just helps all of the bandwidth from your computer and the internet to go to power the webinar and can just help things run more smoothly. If you continue to have problems that just don't seem to resolve after a few seconds, you might just try logging out of Zoom and coming right back in. That can sometimes reset the connection for you. Many of you are, most of you probably have already used the chat to say hello and connect with others on the webinar, and you can continue to use that chat feature to share your thoughts, respond to what's being said and shown during the webinar. But again, if you'd like to ask an official question during the Q&A period, if you'd use that Q&A icon on your screen and put your question in there, then we'll make sure to get that into the Q&A at the end. We are recording today's webinar and we will share that recording with you along with the slide deck. So you'll be able to refer back to all this information and share it with your colleagues. Just keep an eye on your email tomorrow for a link on how to access that information. If that email does end up in spam, which unfortunately sometimes they do end up in junk folders, we are going to post the webinar to the Ballard Tighe website, so you can keep an eye out there as well. All right, I think we are ready to get started, and I'm pleased to invite Brenda Rosas to join me on the screen. Brenda is an educational consultant with Ballard Tighe and is going to be your guide today. Brenda, don't think we're seeing you quite yet.
Yep. I need you to give me permission to start video.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
That's on me. Let's see. Give me just a second. Apologies, everybody. All right, you should have the power now.
Nope. Let's see here. Should I try to host again?
Let me try one more time, and thanks everybody for your patience.
Oh, I'm the Ballard Tighe one, not Brenda.
Okay, there you go.
I think. Or maybe, yeah.
Okay, I'm making you the host.
Let's see here. It's not letting me start video.
All right, try it now. And again, thanks everybody for your patience. We want to see Brenda.
There we go.
Yay!
All right.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry
about that. Okay.
All right,
So,
I'm going to leave you to it now.
Thank you. So my name is Brenda Rosas, and I am an educational consultant here at Ballard Tighe. I'm originally from San Francisco, and I am actually currently in Anaheim near Disneyland. So enjoying the beautiful, not San Francisco, but California weather in Southern California. I have a bachelor's degree in Chinese as well as a master's in teaching English to speakers of other languages. I've spent the past 15 years in secondary EL multi-level classrooms. Never actually had a single level classroom, so multi-level classrooms is actually my passion. I have spent a lot of time working with EL curriculum and assessment development during my 15 years of teaching. I also began using a blended learning approach in 2009. A lot of the digital curriculum was built onto a platform, something like Blackboard, later Canvas, And I learned a lot of different strategies to teach digitally, even being inside a classroom, and later developing a curriculum that could be used remotely, virtually, hybrid, blended, all of the above. So today we are going to talk about the philosophy, basically our philosophy here at Ballard Tighe, about how, even if you have digital materials, we really do want you to be a teacher. Direct teaching is so important for students, especially if you're able to meet with them online or in person, or, even if it's asynchronous, like you can't meet them live. We're going to look at how to use digital materials to teach in a blended hybrid approach. And then we're going to have some time for questions and answers. So basically, the difference between hybrid learning and blended learning is that in hybrid learning, you're going to have maybe a 2-day, 3-day approach where 2 days students are in the classroom with you, and then 3 days they may be at home on technology doing some more independent study work. It could even mean that you are meeting with them on video as well. However, blended learning is used a little bit more loosely, where you are even in the classroom face-to-face using some kind of technology or platform to interact with your students. And then on the platform, they can then do something a little bit more independent study. However, today for our purposes, we're going to use the words hybrid learning, blended learning, virtual, remote, all of that, any and all of that together. There's synchronous and asynchronous. So with synchronous, you're going to have some form of live instruction, and maybe some of you have done that during this time of COVID. Maybe you have not yet done that, but basically with some kind of video conferencing, you are able to do synchronous teaching. So it could be through Zoom, it could be through Meets, it could be through Teams, a lot of different things. But basically you are live with the students on video, or at least through voice, and you are doing direct teaching and interaction. And this is very important times because you can then do discussion, you can do a lot of listening and speaking activities, even reading and writing with your students. However, when there's times where you're not able to do live instruction, asynchronous learning is very important for students as well. This is the independent study time. I do want to talk a little bit to the K1-2 teachers as well that are joining us, even though this is a little bit more secondary focus. The independent study for them might look a little bit different. This morning, I was reminding teachers that when you do art with them, you give them an assignment, they can do a little bit more of that on their own on paper. So the digital side could be they know what they're doing digitally in the platform, but then they could do a lot on paper as well. So we really believe a lot in direct instruction. Teachers are hugely important in the learning process. With English learners, even more important, just because you need to have that practice of language with the students. So with direct instruction, you can be lecturing, you could be interacting, you could be teaching them different things to practice, leading activities, leading some different discussions online. But direct instruction is really a big part of what we are going to show, and we're going to show how to do that direct instruction while teaching a lesson. There's also independent practice. So basically, students can do that on their own time, a little bit off that virtual time with you, but definitely something that they could turn in later. But independent practice is also very important. We're going to talk a lot about discussions and discussion boards, and mainly a lot of discussions that will happen spontaneously and live. But you can always start off with essential questions. You can always do brainstorming activities. You can do discussion through Google Docs. You can do it through something like a platform in Canvas or Blackboard or Schoology. But the idea is that you are able to still do discussion with students, whether it's live or live synchronous or not live asynchronous. So in all of our teaching of EL, we really do believe a lot in using images. Images are so great, not just for those younger students, but also for the older students. Because you are digital, because you are remote now, you are able to use videos. You are able to do that in class, but also you can host the video in a platform or just on your video conferencing and share screen. But please use videos, please use images, because it's so easy for students to make a connection when you show them an image of what you're talking about versus trying to explain what you're trying to talk about, because images will help them make that connection a lot more quickly. We are going to talk a lot about interacting with slides and docs. So we are going to show a Google platform and how to do that. Basically, if you don't have Google, that's okay. You can use PowerPoint, you could use Word, you could use Microsoft. You could also use Apple apps, whichever, as long as you are able to show like slides and docs. So some kind of like whiteboard virtually, like you would use in a normal classroom, right? For PDFs, they are a little bit harder for students to interact with, a little bit harder for you to interact with, but even just to start with PDFs to show a reading, to show a worksheet, you know, are very useful. If you ever wanted to change the PDF into something that you can interact on, you could always put it as a picture inside a slide or a doc, and then add some text boxes on top so you can then show how to type in a PDF. Some schools use other apps like Seesaw or ways to interact with PDFs, but today we are going to focus a lot on slides and docs. Whenever we're teaching English learners, it is so important for us to do reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So even in a virtual environment, we definitely want you to do reading, writing, listening, and speaking. If you have a hybrid approach in person, you could still do 6 feet apart speaking, oral practice. Basically, we really do want to talk about all skills need to be represented: reading, writing, listening, and speaking in a lesson. So before we get started on an actual lesson and how to do it practically and simply, I really do want to kind of go over the digital content that we are going to be using as an example. So Champion of Ideas is the secondary materials for Ballard Tighe. So it's for 6th through 12th grades. It is digital in nature, and that's what we're going to look at now. I do really want to emphasize that I'm not trying to sell you this curriculum. I'm trying to show you how to use the curriculum to teach in a hybrid environment. However, if you have a paper set of materials, if you have some digital, if you're using other materials, if you're putting your own materials together, all of these strategies can still work in what we're going to show you. But to show you what a digital platform could look like, this is a learning management system language letter. So the Champion materials are built onto that. There are 4 components. You're going to have a reader, which is a textbook, and a Champion library, which is usually some kind of novel or reading about a culture. You're going to have a writer, which is a workbook, and then a tester, which are the assessments. So all of these are digital in nature. What's really cool about building something on a platform or having curriculum already at your disposal that's on a platform is that there is a lot of interactivity that can happen for students. However, this is really where I want to caution teachers. It is so easy for us to assign assignments, have students go into a digital platform to then do the interaction with it, and then we don't actually get to do direct instruction. Now that we've had a few months of virtual, online, hybrid, blended approach, maybe it's time to add a little bit more direct teaching into the mix. But if you were to have something like this, whether it's a PDF, students wouldn't be able to input their answers. But if you had something that's built digitally into a platform, you are able to interact as students into this. So I could spell mouse incorrectly. Maybe I think this is a door. You could then, as a student, click a check mark and then see what I got incorrect, and then try it again. And every time I do this worksheet, it then gets sent to the teacher of how many I got wrong or a percentage. But what's cool about this is it does grade digitally. You are able to keep track and progress monitor for the students. Some other ways are yes, no questions. You're also going to have things a little bit more difficult in nature with fill in the blank, and even things academic like a book report. Okay. moving on to the assessment part of it, whenever you build an assessment into a learning management system, if you have a one answer kind of thing, normally it will auto grade. And that's what's so great about teaching or doing assessments digitally. That can be done on their independent study time, or you could do it live while watching them take the assessment. So it gives them a little bit more accountability. But here you'll see the different images that they could then fill in the blanks on. But there also is room for audio. So even if you don't have Champion, if you have your own assessment and you wanted to put it digital, you can make the assessment digital. You can record audio files onto it, and that way they could hear you and still do it a little bit more digital in nature. Okay. I'm just going to show you a glimpse of the reader, but we're going to see how to interact with the reader a little bit more inside the lesson itself. But here you'll see there is a reading. They are able to listen to the audio. I want to pause here because whenever you have a reading for students, you are able to voice record using a lot of different things in the computer, a lot of different apps. So if you voice record, you drop it onto a PowerPoint or a Google slide, or you send students an audio file, or you make a video of yourselves, you can still do audio for students to listen to. Audio is very important because students need to hear the reading to help them with reading fluency, pronunciation. It really does help them have a model to copy. Here we're going to look at some of the annotation tools a little bit more closely later when we are in the reading, but what's great about this is you can interact digitally with the reading. You can make sticky notes and type into it. You can also basically write on it, highlight, and things like that. So we are going to look at that later on. Okay. So we are going to now transition to the lesson part of it. So in Champion, there is a teacher's guide. It's completely scripted. And what I've done is taken the lesson plan itself and put it into a more simpler form for us to look at. But what I'm going to do right now is model how I would teach this as a teacher in a classroom. Definitely for secondary learners, but I also think that elementary teachers can do a lot of the same things as I am showing you now. The reason I say that is during this time of COVID, I am a secondary teacher, but I got the privilege of, or I had the privilege of teaching my 5-year-old daughter who was doing a kindergarten curriculum. And if you know, that's when they learn to read. I was very unsuccessful in teaching my daughter how to read. I did not have the patience to teach a 5-year-old. So props to all of you elementary teachers out there. I thought secondary was hard. I think elementary, kindergarten, first grade is even harder. So just wanted to say that a lot of the strategies that I am teaching you now, I know could have worked with my daughter had I had more patience, had I had the time to homeschool her, right? But moving to the lesson plan. We're looking at chapter 9. Chapter 9 is all about food, all about eating, things like that. So in order to start a lesson, we always want to do some kind of schema building or warm up. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to talk about grocery stores. We're going to introduce the vocabulary, not formally yet, but more of through conversation. In order to do that, it's great to use images. So I'm going to show you now how to do that. So this one right here is a warm-up that I have created in Google Slides. And we are going to show this picture to the students in order to talk about what you'll see here. I'm going to ask Emily to unmute herself and kind of interact with me just because I would love to have someone on the other end to act as a student. So I'm going to pretend I'm the teacher now. So today we are going to be talking about food and grocery stores. So Emily, could you tell me, have you been to the grocery store?
I have, yes, with my parents.
And how do you get there? Do you drive? Do you walk to the grocery store?
We walk and sometimes we drive if we're going to get a lot of stuff.
All right. And what's your favorite thing that you might see here in this picture that you would probably buy at the grocery store?
It looks like there's some grapes there. I love grapes.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you, Emily. So here you can have a conversation about grocery stores. A lot of the things we could name in a grocery store. So in this image, we have apples, we have pears, we have lemons, bananas, things like that. For me, I would love to bring in the culture of the students because I know when I go to Mexico, we literally walk to the grocery store every meal. So we buy food for that meal and then we cook. And I might share as a teacher that here in America, I literally go to the grocery store once every 2 weeks, put everything in the freezer. It's not so fresh, but that's just kind of the way we do it. So we might talk about different foods that they like or that they see in this picture, foods from their culture, foods from American culture, things like that. So that's how I would approach this as schema building. Okay. So next we would talk about the question, are you hungry? So if you are basically talking about food, you want them to be able to understand the question, are you hungry? And therefore respond to the question, are you hungry? I put a little bit of an image that's more adult-like because this is an adult presentation. So generally pick your pictures for your audience. So are you hungry? Definitely a meal, right? We would talk about what you would like to eat when you're hungry, things like that. Are you thirsty? Also is about food. So definitely, a drink, what things do you drink when you're thirsty? What is your favorite drink? But definitely we really want to have students interacting with you live like we are now so that they are able to have a discussion. All right. So after that, I might display guide 14 and see what that graphic tells us. So let me show you what that looks like right here. So here I'm using an image, really again, schema building about 3 meals a day, morning, afternoon, and night. I have the pictures of what a breakfast might look like and a lunch and a dinner. I might have the discussion, with being at home all the time. Maybe as a teenager, like my teenager who's 16, she gets up and then she eats her breakfast in the afternoon at 2 p.m. So we might have a discussion of the normal meal times and now what that might look like. And then what we would normally eat for breakfast, what they would normally eat for breakfast in their culture. Okay. So after that, it's now time to assign some homework. So I did my synchronous time, right, live with them. I could have done that also a recorded video. But now I really want students to do some independent practice. So I would then teach my students or not teach them, but I would show them the words that they are going to look at for homework. This is the list, and basically there are lists of, different types of foods. And I might pick the ones that I know that are going to give them a little bit more trouble to use as an example, like donut or dozen or ingredient. And then I would send them home with an assignment to actually make something like my materials here. So let me show you what I would want them to make. Close some things here. So here's a picture of vocabulary, right? So this is going to be the word baker. And so I would get a picture of the word baker. So where would you get these pictures? I like to use Pixabay. It is free. Let me just type it out so you all know how to access that. But Pixabay, it's free to download. It's royalty free. So basically I could type in a word like baker and then look to see which one I want. I would then copy the image and I could then drop it right onto my PowerPoint. You could even teach students how to do this because if you can teach them to use images and create those PowerPoints, then it is so useful for them in the future to be able to make these assignments and turn them in to you. And they could also use it when you're teaching live. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I would assign 3 to 5 nouns for each student. I would tell them to show me they understand the word. So they can make a PowerPoint with the word or with the image. And then the second PowerPoint, they're going to have the word. So I don't want them to put the word on the first PowerPoint, only because later you can actually use it for a game. So if you have it for multi-purpose, it's better. So have them put the image and then the image with a word. For higher level, you could even ask them to make a sentence, maybe down here in the speaker notes when they turn it in. So that way you could see they're using it in a new context. But then when they get to class, so pretend we're live again, we are going to review the homework. I can then have students teach the class these words through their images. And of course, I would be checking to make sure they're doing it correctly. All right. But the way I like to do this is definitely I would present it and have the picture and ask the students, well, what word do you think this is from vocabulary? And I would say, okay, this is a baker. And then I would teach them donut. This is a donut. And then dozen, so there are 12 of them, count them out, dozen. And then ingredients, I think would be difficult for the students. They may never have cooked, so here are the ingredients. And then that would be that. So after we review the homework, the students are now a little bit more familiar with the vocabulary. All of this is in preparation for reading. So we need to practice the schema building first, vocabulary, and then some grammar. There's going to be some grammar items in the reading that I do want them to kind of pull out and practice. So the first one is future tense. So let me show you what that looks like for future tense. So again, I felt that it would be good to do it in some kind of slide. And the way I would normally do future tense is with a line of present time, past, and then future. So I would say, okay, so future tense is going to be something that happens later, after now, and then before. And we would use the phrases am going to, is going to, are going to. So here I am teaching them about the different tenses, but mainly focusing on future tense. All right. So going back to the lesson plan, we are now going to talk about the photograph, guide 15. What do you see on the table? Using the phrases is going to, are going to, and then using it to answer the question, what do you think this family is going to do? So here I've put the picture on the slide, and basically the question is, what kind of things do you see in this picture? As students are giving me answers, I could then put it into my brainstorming map that I've built into PowerPoint. So Emily, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Could you please tell me, what do you see on the table?
I see plates and salad, and maybe some meat.
Okay.
Some fruit.
All right. So I could just type in plate, salad, meat. And I would be doing this live with the students so they could see my brainstorm happening. And it doesn't need to be neat, you know, you kind of just want them to see the words, how to spell it, their ideas. And then after that, maybe I practiced with a lot of students. Now, Emily, what do you think this family is going to do?
They're going to eat.
Okay. And remember the phrase, right? So they are going to eat. So I would then go around the virtual room or in person, the actual room, and do a brainstorming of what they are doing here. Normally, you would be writing this on a whiteboard. It's pretty much the same thing. You're just doing it digitally. So I am able to teach future tense to prepare them for the reading. All right. Then we might practice vocabulary again because maybe it's a new day, or we just want to make sure they're practicing the vocabulary, because a lot of the vocabulary is food. We're going to need that for the next section. That next section is going to be about countable versus uncountable nouns. So let me show you here what we're going to do with that. So teaching countable and uncountable can be a little bit difficult for students because they are, number one, learning the food item. Not all food items are the same in our culture versus their culture. Also, having to count or not being able to count is an interesting concept to teach. So even if you were teaching elementary, this would be difficult as well. So countable, it's one item, and then you would talk about how you would use a or an. So if the word started with a, you would use an apple, so an, and then apple, and then a lemon. Like, I know you know all of this. I just kind of wanted to go over the dialogue that you would be going over with your students. But I might give some examples of items of food that are countable. I would also give items that are uncountable. And a lot of these words come from the vocabulary that we just covered with the students. So some is generally used when you can't count things like soup or cereal. Bread is counted in loaves or slices, but bread in general is still uncountable. So you'll see here some uncountable nouns. All right, Emily, let's see how good you are with countable and uncountable. So I have a T-chart here that I can now have images to then pull into the T-chart. The way I've stacked it is pretty much on top of each other, so the images can be moved around. Okay, cupcake, Emily. Are you there, Emily? Cupcake, countable, uncountable? Okay, so let's pretend she said countable. So I'm gonna move it into countable. Apple, countable. Milk, uncountable. So here you can see I'm now creating a chart for them. I could also type it in and make that list for them, but it's even better if you're using images to help them remember the vocabulary words. All right. So during this time, you do want to practice a lot of oral communication. So I want blank, right? So I want a lemon. I want an apple. So here's where I would go around the room, have a lot of that practice. I have the sentence frame right here. Maybe I even add a period. And basically, I'm practicing with the students orally, having this interaction with the images. After I've done that, definitely I want to do some kind of independent practice. So you could make a worksheet, you could make another T-chart for them to do, but in our language ladder, there is actually a worksheet that has this already done for you that students can then interact with it. So here you'll see bread. So there is maybe some bread on the table. There is a pineapple. All right, so this kind of activity is really great for them to do on their own, a little bit more asynchronous. But definitely you want them to practice that because they are going to see this in the reading shortly. So after you've done that, we are now going to transition to how do you teach a reading. Definitely you can assign a reading, have students to pre-read, but you really do want to teach through the reading, and this is how you'll do it. So we're going to go to chapter 9. Sorry for your eyes. We're going to then find the reading in the platform. Now, again, if you do not have Champion, if you do not have this set of materials, you can still have a PDF, or you can put the text on slides and then still interact with it, use colors, different things like that. But since Champion already comes with those things, I am going to show you. I love this activity. I do it all the time, every time I teach a reading. I usually have students have a piece of paper in front of them, and then I play the audio and I ask them to write down, draw, write in your own language, anything you understand from listening to the audio. So
Unit 3, Daily Life.
So as they're listening, they're writing down everything they understood, drawing a picture. I would then actually go around the room, the virtual room, and ask them, please, can you tell me what you understood? In that way, I'm instantly assessing them, so I know what to cover a little bit more closely and things like that. All right, so let's do some pre-reading, talk about the idiom sweet tooth, and talk about the pictures and maybe predict what's going to happen. So, satisfy your sweet tooth at the delicious diner. Sweet tooth is an idiom, so it means that you generally like to eat things that are sweet. So I do not have a sweet tooth. I like salty things or food in general. Meat is my favorite, but sweet tooth are like my best friend. Any sugar object, she will eat and eat a lot of it. So sweet tooth, that idea. And then let's look at some pictures. So pancakes, berries. Did we learn some of this in the vocabulary? Pie. So we might talk about the different items that we see. There are pictures throughout. Again, if your reading doesn't have pictures, drop some pictures onto those PowerPoint slides to help them understand the reading. But if we were to predict, we were to talk about this picture of a baker, maybe we can predict, I don't know, Emily, if you want to jump in, what can we predict from the reading? The reading's about a baker, maybe, who makes different foods.
She's a baker, and she enjoys making food for other people to enjoy.
All right, thank you. So then we would go into the reading, explain it, and this is, teachers, what you do best, right? Your lecture time. All I'm trying to say is you can do that lecture time virtually. You do not need to basically have them read it on their own and have them do everything on their own. You are able to do things live. If you cannot meet with your students, use Zoom or Meets and make a video of yourself talking to yourself like I am, and then you can teach them in that way. But what's really cool is in this, you are able to see the vocabulary with the definition, so students can be reminded of what those words mean. They are able to mark, so I might say something like, students, on your independent time, please, words that you don't know, oops, delicious, circle the ones that are going to give you trouble, like sweet. I might also then start here and say, okay, we are going to cover the words and work on this column. Let's just talk about the words and the image, and then I might stand the area. So do you have a sweet tooth? I would then lecture only about that sentence, okay? I love this feature, especially with secondary, especially with multi-level. It's great if you can chunk words and phrases together to kind of get them discussing that. That is what I would love to do. Also, I would annotate for the students, basically taking notes. But let's see what I have here in my Google Docs. So after I have taught the reading, I would definitely have the students answer the questions. Even if the questions are digitally displayed, it's still easier to do digital comprehension questions in a Google Doc. I would definitely share this Google Doc with students so they can actually type into it and I could see their answers as they're doing it, or they can make a copy, things like that. But definitely I want to remember, I need to pre-show you so that you know I'm going to teach this. So who, what, where, when, why is the main goal of teaching this reading. I want to focus on main ideas. So while I'm lecturing about the reading, I do want to make sure I focus on the who, what, where, when, why, so students can first hear me talking about it, then they could see it in the reading, and then they could answer those questions. So let me draw your attention to this paragraph right here. I am a baker and I love to bake desserts, says Delicious Diner owner Linda Tobosa. I decided to open a diner. I want to share my talent with everyone in Springfield. Okay. I did this backwards. I apologize. I would probably start here. So basically the owner of the Delicious Diner hopes you do. So if you have a sweet tooth, the Delicious Diner is going to open in Springfield next month. It will serve all your favorite sweet desserts and etc. Okay. So who is going to be the owner? And her name is Linda Tobosa. What is a Delicious Diner? What, where? In Springfield. Where, when, next month, and why she wants to share her talent with everyone in Springfield. So I would not do that, you know, with the students. I would generally make sure I focus on those pieces, because then when I'm doing this part, I can highlight it in the reading. So we just went over the comprehension questions, or we didn't yet. That's up to you. You could do questions first and then this, or this and then the questions. But generally with blue, I would highlight the who. So here I can find the blue color. All right, students, or Emily, who is this article about?
The Delicious Diner owner, Linda Tobosa.
Very nice. So I could highlight Linda Tobosa and maybe even the words Delicious Diner. So I'll just say the owner, right? And then I could come in here and type in the baker, Linda Tabosa, or I could just type it here so that they can't see everything. All right, so now we're looking for the what, and we're gonna do that in green. So what is being talked about here, Emily?
The baker, the diner itself. Yeah,
Good.
delicious
Okay.
diner.
Delicious diner. We could also say the baker. Very good. And then the where will be in yellow. Where is it going to? Springfield. So here, here. And then the when is going to be in orange.
Next month.
Very nice. And then lastly, in red, we're going to do why. I'll give you a hint.
She loves to bake.
Good. Okay, so we'll just put share her talent or loves to bake. All right. So as I'm teaching, I'm pulling out the main ideas. I'm putting it in a graphic organizer for them in color on the reading. And now the reason I'm doing this, let me just bring you back to why, is we are covering the main idea. And my goal here is to model a summary paragraph and then teach them or then assign it. So I'll write it for them and then I will assign it so they can then put their summary paragraph together. So again, reading, we're going through the reading. Listening and speaking, that was the interaction between Emily and I. And then now we're doing the writing. So you could still teach writing, which is very great here. Let's try it. So in order to do the writing, we need to bring in that future tense because the article is what Linda Tabosa is going to do, right? So let's try this. So simply, I could say who. So maybe Linda Tabosa is going to open what? A diner called Delicious Diner. Where? She will, or she is going to, sorry. She is going to open it in Springfield next month to share her talent with everyone. Now, assuming they were at maybe the intermediate level, these sentences might be a little too long, but I didn't want to take up too much time. So if you wanted to have them make shorter sentences, you could. But generally, you're teaching them to write a paragraph, which is generally indented. And in the future tense, I could even then, after doing the summary, go back in and now highlight the main ideas. So blue for Linda Tabosa, green for what, double checking that I have all of these items in there. Because it's digital in nature, oops, I didn't successfully do the other color. Okay, but since it's digital, you are able to assign this to students. They can make a copy of it. They can write their own paragraph. You could also then have them highlight these who, what, where, when, why in their paragraph to double check that they got it in their summary and then turn it into you. I would definitely have them come the next day and share this with the class to read it, to speak it, you know, whatever you need to do. But definitely modeling that is important. And basically really having them interact with you and other students is really the goal of a hybrid approach to teaching English learners. All right, so just kind of skipping ahead here, the making connections part is great. It's talking about being a baker, but I do want to focus a little bit more on bolding words of countable and uncountable that we can go back into the reading to do that. We can also talk about adjectives and go back into the reading and talk about adjectives. We can list the countable and uncountable nouns and then basically have that as a T-chart that looks like this. I could then list the words after I've highlighted it. So let me try that. So I didn't use purple. I might find some things like cupcakes, cookies, cakes, and I could type those in. and then definitely find my uncountable. Oh, I was supposed to make it blue. And then I could do it in green as well. But the point is that I am now, everything that I taught them pre-reading, I'm now post-reading going back in and making sure that they are finding those in the reading. This is annotating at its best. This is something we forget when we are teaching a reading, to go back into the reading and find it in context, because you really do want to draw that out for the students. Some other activities you could do is compare and contrast. You could talk about giving them a homework assignment. You could have them pick 3 different foods and describe it. But there are a lot of other activities to extend. So I'm not going to show you how to do this, but kind of just go over it. My favorite is they can make a class chart of preferences from the students. They can call their friends or jump online with them or email them to ask about that. They make a chart, and then they could write a paragraph about that, present it to the class. They could also talk about starting their own business, just like the owner did for Delicious Diner. They could talk about opening a diner, organized by groups. You can, as a teacher, organize them by groups by preference, put them on the same Google Doc, put them on the same Google slide. They can make their presentations independently on their own time, live as they're doing it together. And then they create steps for opening a business, and then they could prepare a presentation that they present to the class. So they are applying a lot of what they just learned and now doing something a little bit more with world knowledge, project-based, and then they are presenting, they're delivering the presentation. Lastly, you always want to wrap up with writing. I love closing any lesson with writing and then a last presentation. So you could have them write a letter to a friend describing a new restaurant using the past, present, and future tense. Definitely the future tense, because that's what you went over. Then have them present that writing to the class. But mainly you are doing a lot of the lesson plan. You are using Google Docs, you're using Google Slides, and it really is just to help them with, you know, that interaction that they so need as English learners, and you're doing it virtually. So again, just to review, any content that you have, whether it's Champion or not, please try to get as many pieces to be digital. Maybe it's not made digital, but you can put pieces as digital. You could type things out, you can make sentence frames, you could find pictures, things like that. But definitely in your lesson plan, please make as much opportunity as possible for you to do direct teaching, so that you can attack this hybrid learning and blended learning opportunity even with great live instruction, synchronous or even independent study for asynchronous. And then do discussions, use images, interact with the Google Slides, Docs, PDFs, and definitely focus on reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So at this time, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Champion of Ideas. It is built on a digital platform. You did see there's teacher interaction, student interaction. It is a great full curriculum, aligned to standards, and it is definitely for your secondary audience. And students can do things independently and turn them into you. Teachers can look at grading and reporting. So Champion of Ideas is an excellent program. I hope you have seen that it is very well planned, very laid out, and easy to teach with some additional digital materials that you could make and using that digital platform. We also, for our K-1-2 audience, those who teach those really early newcomer beginners, Hands-On English is really great for that. It comes with a teacher-facing digital side and a lot of paper-based materials, so you can easily, for a hybrid approach, teach in the classroom with the paper-based materials, and then when you're virtual, transition to the more online through the portal, or even in the classroom, do that portal. But you can see here it comes with word and picture cards, sentence frames for teaching language forms and functions, worksheets that are already in PDF, teacher guides that are scripted, and big books. All of these pieces are digital in nature, so you can show them, manipulate them, things like that. So for those of you who aren't secondary, Hands-On English is really great for your young learners, very interactive, lots of great interactive speaking and listening activities as well. We also have English Mats. That's generally for your K to 6 audience. These are great. They're full color. You are able to talk about vocabulary, have a discussion, and then write about it. They are based in tell a story or talk about a character, things like that. So you really want to have students interacting with vocabulary, talk about it first to then write. So speak to write. Carousel of Ideas is a full program which also includes Frames for Fluency, which is really great for oral proficiency practice. This is for the K-5 elementary full-on curriculum, and it really does come with a lot of picture word cards, themed pictures for a springboard for language, as well as PDFs, so that even if you wanted to just send them PDFs for them to do as worksheets, you can. There is literature involved. And also these teacher-facing materials of Go English that will tell you a lot about how, the grammar, form, and functions, what levels those are placed at. But definitely Frames for Fluency is very great for oral proficiency practice. We definitely recommend Frames for Fluency for K to 5, but also for 6 through 12. So if you were to use something like Champion or some kind of reading program out there that's at the higher level, Frames for Fluency is great at the front end because it has that thematic language, the vocabulary that students need right now, especially if they're a newcomer. And then we also have English and Spanish language proficiency tests. We have proficiency tests from preschool all the way to 12th grade. And for oral, it's all able to give remotely now. So if you are unable to test your students right now and you need a remote option during this virtual time, please come contact us in English or Spanish. Reading and writing is also able to give virtually. We also have a pre-IPT, so for our preschool audience, a remote option as well. But very great for progress monitoring as well as just seeing where students are for placement. We are consultants here at Ballard Tighe. We definitely want to have conversations with you, whether that's on the phone or through a demo. I love meeting everybody. Hi to all those I've met already. But definitely, we want to have a conversation with you how to best meet your learning needs, your teaching needs, and whether that's with curriculum or professional development on our materials. We definitely want to have a conversation with you. So we are here, email, demo, call in. We would love to speak with you. Just for attending, you are able to have the 15-day trial for hands-on English for the K1 and definitely for a Champion of Ideas, which I have shown. We would love for you to, come try our materials. And basically, you would email me at brosas@ballard-tighe.com to get that login information, only because we have to assign the licenses to certain people. So please contact me and I will get you your 15-day trial of hands-on English, or you could book a demo and have a conversation with me, but I would love for that to happen. All right, Emily, I'm gonna turn this over to you.
If you can give me access to the video, I'll join you back online.
All right.
And we have had a lot of questions come in, and we're probably not going to have time to get to all of them.
Okay.
So Brenda will definitely go through questions and get back to folks. And we've had a lot of questions about purchasing and pricing for the various products. So we'll take a look at that too. And Brenda can get in touch and follow up with those questions. So I thought I had put the questions in here, but I'll just go ahead and read out some of them that have come out. So let's see. Just when you were looking at Champions and some of the other products, are they cross-curricular? This particular participant is a bilingual 6th grade math teacher.
Okay, so to address your question, it is content-based, but not for 6th grade curriculum content. So I'm gonna say no for secondary. It is generally, has math components, but generally ELA, science and history. So it's content to teach English language acquisitions. So it would not replace your math content.
Gotcha, that's helpful clarification. Can the lessons that you've shown be modified for pre-emergent and emergent basic students?
Oh, sorry. So that lesson was chapter 9. It was basically for early intermediate audience. We do have chapter 1 for the pre-emergent or level 1 students. All of the strategies I presented, yes, can be for those lower level students. However, you might want to start with school words or home type themes that are a little bit more simple in nature.
All right. And a similar question, just curious if you've got any thoughts or strategies around managing multi-level classes and how to keep the most developed English speakers challenged while also helping those emergent students not feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. I love those questions. I don't think I can answer it in the 5 minutes we have left. So I do encourage you to book some time with me and we can look at what you're using or maybe what you want to look at with Ballard and Tighe. But our theme pictures, we generally have on the back side all of the different levels and different activities that you can do for multi-level. But breakout rooms are great. Putting students on a certain activity and then focusing another group of students with you is generally how I would approach multi-level. But there's so many different ways. Again, it is my passion. I could talk about this forever and passionately. So please come book a demo with me if you have a multi-level classroom.
Great, thank you. And I did just put Brenda's email address back in the chat. It's there a couple times. I'll put it in again because we've got lots of chats coming in. And we will include it as well in the follow-up email that you get tomorrow. So, and you can also head out to the Ballard and Tighe website, which is ballard-tighe.com. And you'll be able to connect with Brenda through the website as well. So, and as she said, she is a wealth of information and she is so wonderfully helpful and loves talking about this. So I absolutely encourage you to reach out. She is here to help and have great conversation with you. Okay, another question. Are you able to talk a little bit? Again, I know we don't have a lot of time for these big questions, but just how Ballard and Tighe is approaching the push-in model and differentiation at the secondary level.
Okay. So with push-in for secondary, I know that a lot of the time when you push in, you are to help the content area teacher and do a lot more translating. So you might not have the time or the space for something like Champion because it is a full-on curriculum. So again, I'm not going to say that's our philosophy, but generally you want to be able to do direct language instruction. That is our philosophy, but I'm not sure that you could use Champion. However, if you were to do it more of like assigning assignments on that way through an independent study, we wouldn't recommend it just because we love direct instruction so much, but you could do independent assignments to students and then kind of within that push-in time address that. However, I will say this, something like Frames for Fluency would be a great push-in approach because of the scope and sequence. You're able to just focus on past tense or focus on present progressive and look up activities that could work with just for those things. So Champion might not be the best use of your time for push-in, but something a little bit more supplemental in nature like Frames for Fluency.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. And when we had quite a few questions and excitement when you were doing the annotation and the taking notes, and just questions around that annotation, how does that get shared with the student if you're doing that within the program? Okay,
so just like I was sharing my screen with you, that's generally how I would do it live, or a video recording of me doing it. That's generally what I would want to happen just because you are interacting with the students like that. However, on the student side, if they were to do the annotations, they could actually, because it was given to them as an assignment, they could annotate, do all those colors, highlighting, they could then turn that in digitally. But generally a screen share would be just enough. Yeah.
Great. So we are really about out of time, and I'm sorry that we haven't gotten to everybody's questions, but again, Brenda is going to go through those questions and she's going to get back to you. For those of you that had questions around pricing and accessing these materials, Brenda will be back in touch. She's going to be very busy over the next couple days, but we will get back to you. I'm going to put her email address one more time in your chat window there. And also just remind you that you will get an email tomorrow with a link to the recording, to the slide deck, more information about that free trial. And again, Brenda's very valuable email address. And we do encourage you to go out to the Ballard Tighe website to learn more information about Carousel, Champions, Frames for Fluency, Hands-on English, all of the great products that are available that Ballard Tighe has developed to support English language development, as well as the assessment of those English language skills, both at the preschool level and K-12. So a lot of resources and information available for you at the Ballard Tighe website. We really appreciate everybody joining us today. I know what a really crazy and hectic time this is right now, and lots of uncertainty and lots of work on your plates. And so having you join us today was very meaningful for us, and we hope that Brenda's strategies and demonstrations are things that you can take into the classroom as you head into the new school year. So again, reach out to Brenda for that 15-day free trial to have a deeper conversation about these strategies and to learn more about the other Ballard Tighe products. We appreciate your all being here, and we look forward to hopefully connecting with you one-on-one as well as in future webinars. So have a great afternoon and evening, everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.